big sky stretching as far as the eye can see. And under that sky, a sea of grass, sweeping to the mountains and on beyond. These are the grazing lands, the rangelands of this country. Nearly 900 million acres of them, over a third of the United States, devoted for generations to the raising of livestock. That's a lot of land and a lot of grass, but it takes a lot to raise the meat supply for a whole nation, and it takes time too. Time for grazing the grass through the warm months, and for eating it as hay down near the ranch buildings when the snow sets in. To most people, time and grass probably don't seem too important, but on the range and pasture lands, they are. Here, time and grass set their own pace, which the livestock follow as they graze along, slowly consuming the sea of grass to produce a harvest of meat. To the herdsman camped out, the pace is as familiar as the voices around him. So too for the cowboy. But finally, a day comes when the pace of the range is over. The decision has been made to sell, and the livestock are on the move in numbers that reflect the true vastness of the grasslands. Every year, about 22 million lambs and 34 million cattle move out. Some are already at market weight, while others require further feeding. Most cattle leave the range today as calves and yearlings, and are shipped to centers that specialize in feeding them to add further weight and quality. A big commercial feed yard may handle 75 to 100,000 head of cattle a year, and it is a highly scientific beef factory, providing high-energy rations balanced with proteins, vitamins, and minerals. On this diet, calves and yearlings can gain 3 pounds a day or better, and soon reach market weight, around 1,000 pounds. Such specialized feeder operations are not only efficient, they also produce meat of more uniform quality and better finish, which is in growing demand today. This increasing demand for better finished beef has also led individual farms to specialize in livestock feeding, often growing their own grain, adding supplements, and feeding a few to several hundred head a year. Specialization in feeding has brought a need for scientifically mixed feeds and new mills to supply them. For livestock today consume over 133 million tons of grain a year. Such mills provide mixed feeds by the sackload and by the truckload. If feed by the truckload means anything, it means hogs, for they are raised almost entirely on grain, nearly 100 million of them a year, furnishing almost 40% of the nation's meat supply. Here, too, the trend is towards scientific feeding on a large scale and producing a leaner meat-type hog. Production is generally concentrated in the big corn-raising areas of the country. Lambs can be brought to top finish on grass alone, but even here, commercial feeding is used to bring them to market weight more quickly. Whatever the livestock, the day comes when the producer decides to sell. He may sell directly to a buyer for a meat packing company, or he may sell to a packing company buying station, where prices are posted daily. One advantage of the buying station is that the producer can sell his livestock nearby, thus minimizing weight loss and shipping long distances. He can also respond quickly to market changes. He knows, too, that the prices offered here are in line with what the packer is getting for the type of meat the producer has to sell. Another local outlet where the producer knows he will find ready buyers is the livestock auction market.
All right, start boys, what do you for? 50, now 60, 50, now 60, now 60, now 5, now 65, 60, now 5, now 70, 70, now 5, 75, now 70, now 5, here they go, 75 outside, 75, now when you roll them in, they roll them 75, now when you, now 75, now when you, all down, now through, sold them 75. Boy, we got a good bunch of hogs coming in here. A lot of hogs this morning, a lot of real good hogs. No one Omaha. Let's go here, boys, come on. Bring them in here, boys, let's go, open up, bring them in. All right, boys, what are we going to get for them? Start them at a quarter to 30.
Yep.
30 bid now, 40 now, 35 now, 40 now, 5. 40 bid now, 5 now, 50, 50, 50, 40 now, 50, we are.
Yep.
40, 50 now, 5. 50 now, 5. 50 bid now, 5, 5, 50 now, 5, 5, 50 now, 5 now, 5, 75 now, 80 now, 80 now, 80. 75 now, 80 now, 5. 80 bid now, 5, 5, 5, 80 now, 5 now, 90 now, 90 now, 90 now, 85, 90 now, 5. 90 bid now, 5, and so.
There are over 2,400 auction markets in the country, and they handle about a third of all livestock sold. But the producer still has other choices, choices that are sometimes difficult to make.
Demand for well-finished 1,000 to 1,100 pound steers and 900 pound heifers. Prices generally work strong to 50 cents higher.
George, that heifer market sounds pretty good. Maybe we should start up a load of heifers and have them on the market tomorrow.
Well, it might be okay. The farmers are in the field planting corn now, and they're not thinking of sending any cattle in.
What do you think of calling our commission man and asking him what he thinks about it?
That'd probably be okay.
Thus, the marketing choice is made. On each of the 3 million farms and ranches that produce livestock in this country. There are many factors which determine that choice. Farm papers and newsletters, the radio, Department of Agriculture, and his own experience and preference all suggest to the producer which is the best place to sell. If he chooses one of the country's central livestock markets, it may be Sioux City or Indianapolis, Ogden or St. Paul, Kansas City, Omaha, or one of over 50 other such markets. Every day around the clock, railroad cars and trucks roll up to the unloading docks of this great terminal market. The trucks may carry a couple of animals, a couple dozen, or they may be huge double-deckers that can hold 200 lambs or 40 steers. Majestically, the big trailers move in. At the docks, each shipment is checked in and counted. And then the animals are moved off to the pens of the commission firms to which they have been consigned, where professional salesmen will do the job of selling the livestock for the producer. This terminal market is big, the biggest livestock hotel in the world. Its facilities are owned and operated by an independent private company, which assigns pens to commission firms that use them. Hundreds of people staff this hotel, attending to the needs of some 18,000 cattle, 12,000 hogs, and several thousand lambs that can be expected to check in on a busy day.
All right, you see, Bill? Yeah. Everything all right?
Once livestock reach the pens, the commission firm orders from the terminal the feed they need to put on their best appearance for the day's buyers. In this hotel, the service is excellent. Trouble about reservations? Never. At the Livestock Exchange, information is posted on receipts of livestock and selling prices around the nation. The Department of Agriculture furnishes this information to all markets so that both buyers and sellers will be fully informed as they set out to bargain with one another. Meanwhile, buyers for one of the many meat-packing companies that will be competing today are estimating what they can bid in the light of what the company is getting for meat and byproducts.
You've all seen the receipts around the terminal markets this morning. We've got a good supply and we've got a good run of cattle here. If we can buy cattle in line with our last week's costs, I think when the day is over, we'd ought to own a relatively good number of cattle.
Well, now, how about these hotel and restaurant type steers, Newt? We've got a pretty fair supply of them in the receipts today.
I realize that, Tommy. However, our costs were out of line on hotel-type cattle at the end of the week, and unless we can bring our costs into line, I think we should be light on that grade.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to work. Keep me posted.
On the other side of the fence, Members of a commission firm are deciding what they should get for livestock. And they may have an entirely different idea of the market and what it can bring the producers they represent.
Higher on everything with exception maybe some plain cattle weighing over 1,300 pounds. What does Omaha say, Walt? Why, Omaha thinks they'll have no difficulty getting quarter higher on everything except maybe a few plain heavy cattle. It looks to me that with the information that we have locally as to receipts in the 12 markets compared to a year ago and the market information we have from these other points, that we should expect fully a quarter higher here.
With buying and selling plans made, bargaining begins.
Mr. Johnson, home-raised cattle. I'd like to sell these cattle 50 higher than yesterday.
Well, Ray, there's every indication our beef trade's going to be steady. We're going to try to buy cattle steady.
Well, this is a very desirable weight set of cattle. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll split with you, sell them.
What are you asking for these, Walt?
I'll take the same as yesterday.
Well, these cattle dumped me last week, Walt. Just didn't quite cut the mustard.
Well, I think that the boys over at the plant must have made a mistake because then these cattle got a habit of doing just about the right job.
I get that from you fellas. I think we'd ought to send you over to grade them instead of sell them, Walt. With you grading them and me buying them, we'd make a ton.
Look at how some of those cattle carry down the rounds.
The price is all right, Walt, but I'm afraid we're going to have to take 4 cattle out.
Four's too big a trim on this load of cattle. I'd lose my job if I'd take 4 cattle out. I'll tell you what I'll do, though. I'll sell you this load of cattle with 2 cattle out.
Yeah, look at that thing there.
Well, they can't be all pretty, you know. They don't belong to some beauty contest, but they're all for eating. Look at the dressing of them. Look at the condition of them.
These are a little bit on the clown order, aren't they?
Well, you could call them that, but they're dressy, and they're good figuring cattle, and they're dressy. And the weights are just what you always told me you wanted. There they are, weigh 11 1/4, 11 1/2. Now, don't tell me that isn't what you want, because I know it is.
Why, empty.
Now, here you are making fun of my cattle, and I got just what you want. I know you're trying to bear down on me and trying to do something to make me sell them cheap or something like that, but you're not going to get it done today.
Hello, Newt, are you there? Go ahead, Tommy.
I just saw a load of light handy-weight heifers, but they're going to cost us a quarter more. What do you think?
All right, if that's the best we can do, let's go ahead on them.
And so a day's bargaining ends. A sale is closed and the livestock are driven off to be weighed. Hard but friendly bargaining for just a few pennies. But the pennies are important because that's just about all the meat packer gets out of the whole transaction. For the earnings of meat packers are among the lowest of any major industry, about a cent on the dollar. Because the packer's profit has virtually no effect on the price producers get for livestock or the price consumers pay for meat. The competitive nature of the business creates this situation. For thousands of meat packers are competing to sell meat, but they are also competing to buy livestock. And the livestock producer will sell wherever he can get the best price. Thus, when a packer buys, he has to consider what he can get for every last part of an animal. And so weighing the livestock becomes an important matter once a deal is closed. For buyer and seller have been bargaining over pennies, and accurate scales are needed to register such small margins. The skilled hand of the weighmaster and carefully inspected scales assure such accuracy. Once the livestock leave the scales, they become finally the property of the buyer and move on to the meat plant. In the meat plant, beef is dressed and hung in the cooler for 12 to 48 hours. Its temperature is gradually reduced to just a few degrees above freezing. Until it reaches a market, the temperature must be maintained there, though the meat will probably travel hundreds of miles before a consumer sees it. Throughout processing, inspectors of the United States Department of Agriculture examine the carcasses for cleanliness and wholesomeness, and their final stamp of approval on any meat assures the public that these standards have been maintained. Then the meat is graded for quality, and carcasses that meet the packer's own specifications receive his own brand, applied with a roller stamp. Now the meat is selected and tagged for shipment. Here the final grading takes place, and the carcass is often ribbed between the 12th and 13th ribs so that the meat can be examined for quality, color, and texture. Veal is handled in a similar way, except that the hide is usually left on until just before shipping to preserve its delicate color and flavor. Lamb is left whole, but sometimes shipped in primal cuts. Shipping carcasses in primal cuts is a traditional part of the meat packer's job, but in recent years, with a quarter of the nation's meals consumed away from home, preparing portion cuts has become a part of his business too. Cuts for restaurants and railroads, airlines and steamship companies. Unlike any other meat, pork is sold almost entirely on the basis of cuts, and separating them from the carcass is a highly skilled operation. There are hams, of course, and spare ribs, loins, and bacon. But in all, there are actually over 100 cuts, including chitterlings, pig knuckles, and ham hocks. For of all livestock, hogs have the highest yield in meat and meat products, about 70%, as compared to some 60% for beef and 50% for lamb. Preparing all these cuts is not a matter of skill alone, for skill implies the proper tools to work with. In the case of pork, this means razor-sharp blades, curved and shaped to remove each specific cut. It means cleanliness, too, as cut after cut is lifted from the dwindling carcass. Many pork cuts are cured, like bacon, which is automatically infused with the curing solution. Curing also means smoke, 18 to 24 hours over hardwood fires to bring out the real flavor of bacon. And even longer for hams. And still the cutting continues, as bacon is sliced and separated into 1-pound portions. Most operations in the meat packing business require a skillful hand. For like people, no two animals are really the same. Even so, there are some operations that machines can perform efficiently. Modern machines provide an efficient way to make frankfurters, since we eat them by the yard anyway, over 150 million yards a year, in fact. And this assures uniform packing, weight, and length. Similarly, high-precision machinery in the meatpacking industry yields table-ready meats of uniform quality. And doing this has become an important part of the packer's business, producing smoked meats and prepared meats and sausages of all shapes and sizes. There are canned meats and specialty meats and meat dishes of many kinds. And there are frozen dishes, too, in growing numbers, all broadening the market for meat. And just as important are the byproducts of the meat industry. Here, research has discovered a wide variety of useful products that give added value to livestock. Lard and shortening find their way into bread, cakes, and pastries. And animal oils are the basis of many cosmetics. Hides are carefully saved and sold to tanners. And animal fats find use in soaps and detergents. Animal fibers string musical instruments and provide ever-changing adornment in the changeless form of wool, which always looks good in the light of tallow candles. Still other byproducts form the basis of many industrial products, like adhesives that find increasing use in laminated structures. More far-reaching still are the medical aids which byproducts provide. But the packer's basic business is meat. Buying livestock all across the country and processing it is a big job, But that job is easy compared to moving the meat and selling it. This is where the race with time begins, and where the tempo really picks up. For perishability sets the pace in this industry, and from this point on, the meat must be sold and delivered within a few days. Getting the right quality and weights and types to meet specific demands of thousands of wholesale and retail outlets all over the country quickly is one of the great tasks of this industry. A refrigerator car is closed, and the car slowly moves off along a spur to become part of a mainline train. But where is it headed for, and who wants what it's got? A truck pulls out from a packing plant with 15 tons of meat, but who wants it? A salesman somewhere knows the answer. Every week, over 15,000 refrigerator cars and trucks move meat from packers to consumers. Average trip, 1,000 miles. Average haulage, 500 million pounds of meat a week. That's a lot of meat, and it takes a lot of selling to sell it. Close to the vest bargaining, like it was at the terminal market.
It's a little closer than you realize. This $0.50,
Tom,
half a cent a pound.
Believe me, Tom, at a half a dollar,
loins.
it's just trading dollars with you. 50 cents is a... Well, I'm trying to get you...
A lot of sales are made right out of the cooler. But in this fast-moving business, the telephone is often quicker for buyer and salesman.
Well, after all, I mean, all you're giving me is what? All I'm trying to do is get an order for a carload of meat.
Well, I sure don't like the sound of your market. We have a lot of meat to move.
All right, I'll put it in. I don't think it'll do any business, but we'll quote it anyhow. Who knows?
And feel that making shipment of this type only detrimental to our business. Stop.
I think we're going to have to be a little lower than we've been.
All right. We'll talk to him about the pork loins and also about the pork livers, too. Okay? Good enough.
I'd say the top of the market is 7. You might not be able to get it, but let's push for it.
Well, I don't know. I didn't hear that the government had given over their grading to the Tabak and Company, but, you know. Oh, what are you having them rolled? U.S. Standard or A Tabak and Company? Oh, brother. Here we go again.
All day long, the salesmen are at it. And all day long, the phones are busy, keeping the meat counters filled in nearly 20,000 cities and towns and villages all across the country. But the salesman isn't through when he hangs up the phone. Buyers and retailers are having their problems, too. Just about as many and as different from each other as there are meat counters. And these problems continually change the pattern of how meat is bought and sold and put on the road.
Good morning, Gene. It's Mr. Cooper. That steak sale we have is going over a tremendous bag. I'm going to need some more loins. Can you help me out? Well, I'm going to need 25 to 30. Can you get those up to me in the morning? Fine. And along with that, I'd like 2 50s of pork, 2 crates of chickens, and some bologna.
15 tons of meat on the road, and a problem at every turn.
Well, I got hot weather here, and I got to cancel 5 of those trucks. Yeah, 2 more. Everybody's back from Labor Day, and they all want meat.
A couple of cars come in Friday. Got a good price on them. Well, either St. Paul or Omaha, I believe. And they may have one at NS Yards.
Listen, Chris, we've got a big strike on the south side, and the market's off. Can you cancel those 3 refrigerator cars and reroute those others to our north side stores? Catch up with them where? Oh, fine.
Well, I've got to have an extra 10 boxes of ribs this week. The barbecue season has really hit.
Joe, we just can't use any more lamb in Miami. The tourist season's just about over down here.
So it goes. Just about everything that happens affects the retailer and what he can sell. Weather, strikes, holidays, and different preferences all over the country. And it changes every day. How do you make sense out of it? For a perishable commodity. How do you make quick sense out of it for distribution? Quick communication is part of the answer. Reflecting immediately the changing demands and needs and expectations across the nation. Quick calculation is another part. As these needs are processed and translated into specific shipping requirements for each packing plant. What it should ship, and where, and how, and when. And so the routes of thousands of refrigerator cars and trucks make sense. as they head out cross-country toward the consumer. But still, the problems are not all solved.
I know it's not there yet as I wired your warehouse. That flash flood near Yuma required rerouting. It'll be there first thing in the morning. Teletype to Pittsburgh. Reroute cars 1016, 1285, 1192, byway Reading.
Well, that storm's got trucks jackknifed all along there. Frankly, most of them are going to be delayed.
I heard an hour ago he was slowed down in a dust storm, but he's moving.
And meat does keep moving, as the consumer knows. For the consumer can walk into any market in the country and the meat will be there in abundance and variety. And this meat will be fresh, wholesome, and appetizing, an important source of high-quality proteins. She'll buy or not buy as she chooses. And what she chooses turns the wheels of this industry. It turns them all along the line, from the rangelands to the packing plants to the retailers. It turns them fast and in competition to deliver what she wants when and where she wants it. And so the trains and the trucks still move. It's only a matter of time and highways. In a way, it's like the way it was on the range. Time and grass and a tempo of the two. But now the pace is fast. Now it's time and highways and a tempo of these two. And a customer somewhere at the other end of the line.